Hello and welcome to Qtr Time podcast. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed. Hello, everyone, and a massive welcome to our final episode of Commonwealth Games coverage. It is such an honour to be joined by the wonderful Lindsey Chapman to help us review the finals and the Commonwealth Games as a whole. Massive welcome, Lindsey. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. What a marathon we did yesterday. Hey, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I know. I think you were saying before we started recording that it feels like you've actually played all the games, and I can fully agree with that as well. I feel like I've lived every pass and every moment of the games.
Yeah, for sure. It's just been an absolute whopper from the very first day, that Friday back into July, I think it was, and now we're somehow almost in mid-August.
6 months ago when we began the Commonwealth Games.
I mean, it should be very clear that I haven't played in a single game. So, and there's people working a lot harder than me, but we do try and do our best to cover what's going on and to bring those stories. And I think it's the emotion of the journey as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had 3,975 goals. We've had 38 matches. And I genuinely can't believe that we're actually done. Like, that's it.
I know. It feels like almost like it was a dream in a way. I woke up this morning and I couldn't really cope. But before we get into a bit more of the specifics about the games, Lindsey, what did you make of the games as a whole? Kind of an overview. What were your headlines?
Well, look, I mean, I absolutely loved it from the first day. And I think as soon as we knew it was going to be a home games, that sort of changes things, doesn't it? Because you've got two pinnacles of the netball calendar. You've got Netball World Cup, which we held in 2019, and then you've got Commonwealth Games. And to have those two biggies on home soil, it's exciting to look forward to. And then I was sort of thinking, well, what does this mean for netball? You know, what are those crowds going to look like? What's the hype going to be like? What's the team going to look like? And as that's come out over the last few months, the excitement has really been building. And I felt Birmingham really delivered. I went to uni in Birmingham, and to see that city so full of athletes from all over the world, from fans from all over the world, speaking in different accents. I got asked by an Aussie in the centre of Birmingham where the Walkabout pub was, an Aussie bar by an Aussie fan. I was like, yes, my friend, it's just up there. So I think to have that is something really, really special. And then to see the crowds that came to the netball as well. You know, it's a 9,000 seater stadium, and it was selling out every day, and not just for a bronze medal match, a gold medal match. It was selling out in the group stages to teams that maybe aren't as well known as well. So, you know, what a 10 days we've had. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What did you two think?
Yeah, I mean, on that crowd point, I would actually argue that this crowd was even greater than the Netball World Cup crowd. Yeah. Like there was, I think it was the pool game against New Zealand for England. And when we were up and we got another goal, the entire stadium was literally shaking.
Yeah.
I could feel it shaking underneath my seat, and it was just so sensational. So yeah, I think the impact of having the games on home soil can't be underestimated. But I mean, results wise, I think there is a lot of disappointment, a bit of deflation from an England perspective. Yeah. But I think for World Netball, so much joy for Jamaica for being able to make that gold medal match and to take home the silver. What about you, Luce?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think the atmosphere was electric every single day. I think we perhaps didn't have as many close matches as we were hoping for. There wasn't any really one goal thrillers, but I think the tactical changes that coaches put out were really fascinating. I liked when we got to see teams play each other again. So just the way that it turned out that Australia had already played Jamaica and then they got to do the double, and same with New Zealand. I think it was fascinating overall. And obviously now there'll be a big fallout about the results and what happens and what that means. But the best thing for me is that we only have to wait a year and then we get it all again at the World Cup.
That is spot on. And I think what netball has been waiting for, and this has been building for the last few years, is the characters and the stories as well. So we know the sport's great. We watched it. We love it. We know it's not about standing still and pivoting. You know, it is such a dynamic game. It's such a contested game as well. Getting that message out there. But we need those close games. We need big names, which we're starting to get now and have been for a little while. And we need those sort of interesting dynamics, those conflicts as well, because conflict is drama, and that's what we need to bring into the sport. And I think not only have you got the big Aussie names, but the Jamaica stories coming through are just sensational, in terms of that sport really not getting any funding in their home country, yet here they are finishing with a silver medal for the first time in history. And then the individuals as well, people like Green Noel, from a country that we've seen her in the Super League, but now on the world stage, there she is, still doing those facial expressions, still doing those moves. And you sort of think, yes, netball now has these characters and these stories, and that's newsworthy and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and the rivalries as well, not just between particular players and wanting to see how they match up against each other, but the home nations. When we had the Scotland-Wales game, that was absolutely fascinating. And you get the kind of Caribbean clash between various teams. And that really is what helps to elevate it and bring that new dimension, I guess, to netball.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to mention as well, and this is partly why, not that I favour Com Games over a World Cup, but I think with the Commonwealth Games, you have possibly a broader audience of people who aren't already existing netball fans. Like when we were coming through security, we were chatting to, every single day, we were chatting to the security guard and the guys from the army who were doing the checks. And they're all saying, oh yeah, did you see the Uganda-South Africa game? They've never watched a game of netball in their life, but they were so invested because they had that exposure to the sport at an event that they're not netball fans. They wouldn't have normally watched it. But because we had this on, they're now fans of the game. And I do hope that they will start to look at the Super League and domestic level and be able to turn up and show out for that.
Yeah, it's that catalyst really, isn't it, for what the future can hold. And so talking specifically about those 5th to 12th teams then, Lindsey, were there any kind of major surprises in the competition for you from those teams?
I think there are some really good stories in those teams. So, the beginning of the games is possibly the higher seeds playing the lower seeds, isn't it? So we don't get those big clashes and those big conflicts to begin with. So when you look at the discrepancy in score, if you're playing a team like Barbados, you sort of think, gosh, that one's blown out. That isn't necessarily what we're looking for and what we want from the sport. But we have to take all those countries on this journey. There is no point in having a top 4, and it's always the same top 4, and they're reasonably well funded. I know we'll talk about Jamaica and how that happens, but there's money and there's a structure behind it, although still not professional here in the UK as well. But teams like Barbados, you've got Blackman, who is playing her 6th Commonwealth Games, up there with your Jiva mentors. So I personally love to see those stories coming through. And then we've got Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland finished 10th, Scotland 9th, and Wales in 8th. And as you say, that Scotland-Wales game was one of the most interesting ones for me of the whole tournament, because I'm commentating in Super League week in, week out. I know those faces and I want to see that matchup. And I really felt like the sort of professionalism of those teams has really gone up. I don't know whether you felt like that, but just the outfits that they were bringing to the court. I don't mean the dresses. I mean, although the dresses are good, and Scotland.
I was gonna say
really
dresses.
they look really good. But I think the mentality of what's going on in those teams is really exciting. Coach to coach, watching Tamsin's face throughout it, and players to players. That for me has built from last Commonwealth Games, from the World Cup as well. So although we could probably guess which teams are going to be in the lower half, and it is what we thought it would be, I feel like there has been a raising game across the board.
Yeah, I think I agree with that actually. And particularly with some of those closer matchups that we saw, there's been a lot of discussion actually around the format of the competition and whether there are enough close games in the pool rounds. And Izzy Orford on Twitter actually calculated that out of the 30 games played during the group stages, only 1 game was decided within 5 goals, which was the Australia-Jamaica, and only 3 games decided within 10 goals. And it was really interesting because when we spoke with Tracy Neville on the first live podcast that we did, she suggested an idea for the format of the competition to be actually, instead of the 2 pools, to actually have four pools, and then they play each other, and then they play the other placings, and you would get the same amount of matches but possibly more competitive matches. But there's kind of pros and cons to this, in terms of you want those teams to get exposure against the top level, but then you also want the matches to be more entertaining for the crowds and stuff like that. So what do you think about a potential change to the format of the competition?
Yeah, I think that's something that comes round, and it's certainly an option. For the first few days, it's very predictable, isn't it? You know what's going to happen. So if we want that interest from earlier, then I think that is definitely possible. I think you have to think about how it plays out over a 10-day period as well, because we are trying to manage these athletes through a competition, and that is really tough, you know. And I think from a media point of view, you have to be able to follow what's going on as well. And the two pools that we've got at the moment is quite easy to explain. Yeah. So when you're sort of saying we've got Group A, we've got Group B, they all play each other, there's 5 matches, the teams that finish 1 and 2 go through to the semi-finals. You know, that's quite an understandable format. And when people are already saying, where is the netball? Can I see it on iPlayer? Is it on the radio? You want it to be super accessible. So I think Tracy's right. I love how her brain works in terms of she wants to develop the competition as a whole. I think this is clear at the moment, and I think sort of too much change can be a little bit confusing for people. I don't know, it'd be interesting to see it play out, wouldn't it? It'd be interesting to see it play out.
This is what I was saying to Lucy. I was like, I'd like to see, I might actually sit down and do this one point, is do like a live, you know, using the teams and the results that we sort of had from this games, using that in a different format and seeing how it would have played out, and you know what differences we would have had. Like, I'm still on the fence. I don't know. I need to dig more into it to see if I think it's a viable option. But the glaring sort of elephant in the room for me is maybe not so much about a change in the tournament format. Is actually around like what support can we give the lower ranked nations to bring them up in level rather than changing the format. But then again, in the same breath, that takes a lot of time. You know, you can funnel a ton of money in, but you'll still have several years before you'll see any real change. So it's kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do? Do you change the format? Do you give more funding, get more investment? Do you do both?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree. I think it's both. I think you have to have short-term fixes, because there's no way that a Barbados at the level that they were playing at the moment is going to be competing for that top 4. That's not realistic. And you're always going to have certain teams that are better than others. But do they learn more by playing teams that are closer to them, learning how to win in close games, their coaches getting, you know, experience, putting out different tactics and playing teams that are on a similar level multiple times, and also give them that experience that, you know, Northern Ireland might come up against Scotland one day and then they play them again a few days later and they get that other opportunity to turn the result around.
Then is that as entertaining, watching the same teams play each other multiple times? I mean,
I would say yes.
I say that, like, I loved watching Jamaica, Australia twice. Like, that was great.
Especially because the results for both of those games that were repeats were different.
But then do you learn more from having slightly closer games like that with teams that are ranked closer, or is there still a significant amount that you can learn from playing the likes of a Jamaica and Australia as a lower ranked team? So we're just like bickering between ourselves.
This is the thing, isn't it? And it goes round and round. And I think the bigger conversation here is about world netball and how we raise the game together. And you know, this was said before World Cup, and I think the fact that COVID hit after World Cup, I felt we were really on the rise, and then suddenly all the sort of momentum and the energy got sucked out of it. And all credit to the teams for coming back. But I commentated the Scotland-Barbados game before Christmas, and you could really see the difference. So obviously Scotland had been working really as sirens through our Super League, looking pretty good, had that fantastic season. Barbados just haven't had that opportunity, you know, so they were looking slow and they were looking out of practice, you know, and sort of easy balls where you sort of thought, wow, the standards actually really dropped. But they've taken that away and they worked really hard and they looked different at Commonwealth Games. They were much fitter, you know, their brains were back in the game. And I think the world competitions and the 4-year cycle, it would be good to think, what else can we sort of pin through that 4-year cycle, and whether we do that in world groups they don't have to travel miles and miles, they can sort of have a competition that means something in their area, where we can sort of point to that and say this is happening, and it's towards World Cup and it's towards Commonwealth Games. But money is definitely a thing, media is another thing, but it is about making sure that we move together, I think.
Yeah. And we don't leave nations behind.
Exactly that. And I think that, the funding question is something we'll come on to a bit later when we talk about the Jamaica game. But if we keep looking at the sort of 5th to 12th, were there any particular players from those teams, either attackers, middies or defenders, who stood out to you?
It's such a good question, isn't it? And you're looking at those names. And I honestly, I think Tonya Blackman, I've said it already, but I think to play every position on the court throughout your career, to still be there when you're 40 years old, absolute credit to her. That's one of those sort of headline stories, and that's wonderful. So put that to one side. Then you've got Green Noel again. I think she was the only player that played every single game. Did she play the whole time every game?
Yeah, I think she played all 60 minutes of every game. I think there might have been one other person. I'll check the stats as we're talking. I think there might have been one other, but yeah, she definitely did.
I mean, absolute credit to her for that. And we just saw her explode onto the Super League stage, didn't we? So wonderful to see that through. But then I'm quite interested in people like Iona Christian and watching her development through this in that Scottish team. It's going to be so interesting how they work that back into the teams that they go into for the new Super League season. And I love watching her anyway, because I play in the middle, and I like to see a player that isn't necessarily 6'3".
Yes, thank you. I'm with you on that one.
doing her thing in the middle. But some really interesting players coming through in that Scottish side, I think. And then looking at leadership as well, and looking at what it means. So some of the matchups that Nia Jones had, I thought were really quite interesting as well. And obviously we talk about Caroline O'Hanlon in terms of the Northern Irish team, but I don't know what you thought. I saw some interesting players coming through on the Northern Irish side as well.
Yeah, I thought Crosby actually started a little shaky, but I think she really improved throughout the tournament. And I was thinking to myself, imagine if there was I've said this before, but a Belfast Super League side, and they could have, all of those players who are coming up through the ranks. Caroline O'Hanlon actually said that lots of the girls from the Northern Ireland team hadn't even had experience at the underage groups because of COVID. So they'd missed out on that level. And they, considering what they were doing, I think they put out some very strong performances, which were really, really promising, particularly from Crosby.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that at all. God, there's almost too many people to be able to pick from for who stood out. I mean, I absolutely loved Loazi. I thought she was absolutely incredible. Oh God, it's too many. My brain can't choose from all of them.
Yeah,
and I think you can sum it up with style as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be the individual player. I think we saw some really different styles. So yes, you'll come on to Uganda, no doubt, but that's a different kind of netball that we're looking at. Malawi play a different kind of netball, and actually those teams in that 6 to 12 need to be exposed to that, because there's more contact in there. There's balls flying all over the place that you're not expecting, and that's brilliant for the sport as well. Because do you remember when Gretel came onto the scene and everyone was like, that girl's sort of playing basketball, what's going on there? And those are the styles coming in from the Caribbean countries, from the African countries, is really good. I'm going to say Hannah Layton as well.
Oh yeah, great shout. I think she's got huge potential, and to be in such a dynamic player. I mean, she was playing goalkeeper in the Super League and there's now moved into centre. I mean, what amazing versatility from her as well. Yeah, I think we saw some really good performances, and I think it was clear the players who are playing in the Super League and the SSN have slightly more in terms of their technical ability. But I mean, the raw talent from some of those players who are not even playing in professional leagues back at home, who just come out onto the scene and absolutely smash it. It's just so amazing to see. And something we've talked about a little bit before is around the umpiring and bringing those umpires up with us as well, because obviously it's all well and good having these amazing players who are really technically brilliant and the coaches that are really brilliant, but you have to bring up the umpiring standard. And I think that was something that we saw was a point of discussion around the games. I mean, don't forget as well that the umpires at this level are not paid. They have their expenses covered, but they're still not paid. And it kind of feeds into a wider question about the professionalization of the sport and having those resources given out. You know, I'd love to see Gary Burgess going out to, sorry, I'm just signing Gary up for this, but going out to Uganda and training up some of their umpires and doing that. And it's all about the resources and the funding as well. But I do think that is an important factor that doesn't get discussed enough.
Yeah, 100%. Michelle Fippard's spoken with us about this on a couple of occasions now. And I just think there were points where it was noticeable. But I think it's actually a matter of urgency, I would say, for our sport, that this is something that gets sort of bumped to the top of the priority list, I think, because without our umpires, the game doesn't happen.
No, exactly.
So, yeah,
I think it's quite astonishing, you know, on the England pod, and I hope it's okay to mention that here on Courtside. But I think, you know, what I found really interesting was that they are unpaid. So as you say, they're coming through on expenses, and that they're only guaranteed a single match. That's how it works. So when they arrive, they're guaranteed one match. Because I thought, oh, you get a schedule, you're doing the Commonwealth Games, you know, group stages, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't work like that. So they are assessed as they're going through the tournament as well. So the further you get, it's because of your performance as an umpire, and that is assessed all the way through to the finals. So there are other things going on in the background here. And to give up your time, to give up your energy for one guaranteed game, you know, that's a huge commitment. And I think there has to be, as we move forward, rewards for that. And I mean, in terms of payment, you know, and looking at it seriously and saying, right, well, they're part of the game. You know, we ask players to adapt to the umpire. The umpire doesn't adapt to the team that's on, you know, and Gary was very clear. He said, we had a big meeting at the Commonwealth Games, start of the Commonwealth Games, all the umpires were there. This is how we're going to look after this tournament, and this is what we're going to expect from those players. And I think when you are integrating the umpiring into the game in that way, that has to be recognised and has to have time and money put towards it.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of, all of us as fans are sat here saying we need to be able to pay our players, we need a professional league, we need to, you know, pay them what they're worth. But this absolutely extends to the umpires. They're an indispensable element of the game. And if you want the best umpires in the world, I think you need to pay them what they're worth, or pay them something at the very least.
Absolutely. And I liked what you were saying about having more kind of local competitions, like local international competitions. I know we have the Africa Cup, and I think there's a Caribbean equivalent. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. But obviously those are also massive opportunities for umpires to get that kind of level of experience and get more caps under their belts as well, because obviously it's nerve-wracking going out as an umpire. If you only do it, you know, very occasionally at that top level, then you're not going to be feeling as comfortable as you would if you've been doing lots of tests and lots of practice. But I mean, the umpiring question is a whole kettle of fish, isn't it? And we've kind of scratched the surface, I think, with that. But we'll move on to talk about the bronze medal game now in a bit more detail. So, I mean, this was England versus New Zealand. I think it's well, it was a mixed game. I think we had patches. I think there were times when we looked a little bit lost and we didn't necessarily come out having forgotten the result of the day before. What did you feel that England put out in this game, Lindsey?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up really well there. And I've got sort of two brains, if I'm honest. I've got my fan brain, and then I've got my commentator brain. Yeah. And I've found in the last 24 hours they've really mixed, and I don't know who I am anymore. You know, I think that's tough. First of all, I'm going to talk about New Zealand, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So what I think happened there was Nolene's huge chessboard of a mind came into play, and I had a chat with her afterwards, and she basically said, I watched and rewatched that pool game, I saw the gaps, and I made those changes. And I don't know about you girls, but that was so evident
Yeah.
for me. You know, they learnt and they changed their game.
Mm.
And I was watching that box defense throughout the whole match, and it was solid as a rock. And what they did was, throughout the game, they just pushed it further and further up the court. So they were taking us out earlier and earlier. And that's where I think we started to struggle a little bit, if I'm totally honest, in the mid-court, which we talked about, didn't we, before Commonwealth Games, in terms of Serena retiring and just how we would fill that gap, because we're used to her starting in that position. I think that for me, Jade and Malks were a single player. So in my starting 7, it was always 8, because I knew it was going to be Jade and another player coming in to sort of share that load, which was absolutely fine. But there were times when I felt we just couldn't break through that section of the court, the centre court, you know. And then you've got Ellie coming on. That made a difference for me. Well, she started, didn't she, in that game?
No, not in the second game.
Joe Harden, I think, who started. And
right.
There was a lot of noise about that. And
that's right. Yeah. So I think that made a difference. I think Ellie and Layla were our standout players. So we really had a point at either end of the court. But there were just a few times when we went off the boil, you know, and I was also sort of saying, the crowd are really in this, you know, they're a really big part of this setup and this team. And when you quieten the crowd, you lose that momentum. And I felt there were so many dips in that game where, you know, we didn't have anything to call for, because New Zealand were just playing a possession game. They just held the ball and held the ball and held the ball. And if you don't have the dives and the tips, we can't all jump on our feet, and the team can feel that. So I think that's what I came away with, really, you know. And I think the big difference that we'd had in the group game, maybe we just sort of thought that worked, we'll do that. Whereas New Zealand didn't. They went, okay, seen problems, change.
Yeah,
this is exactly my point. I think you're bang on, where Knowles engaged her netball chessboard brain and she looked at the gaps, filled them. But I don't think Jess was quite able to preempt the tactical changes that Knowles was going to implement. And then she wasn't a step ahead enough for me to be able to tackle the genius of Knowles. Like, I just don't think we had really any answers, and it kind of felt a little bit of sort of throw the bibs up in the air, see where they land, very reactive, as opposed to being proactive and being able to preempt the changes that Knowles was going to make. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think we should have started Ellie Cardwell, hands down, I have to say. Even though that would have been starting the same 7 as we did in the previous time against New Zealand, I think that Jo Harten wasn't in her best form that we've seen of her, you know, historically in this competition. We know she had a lot of strapping on her knee. We spoke to her and she sort of said, it's fine.
It's preventative.
It didn't look fine to me. I think at times her movement was not up to the standard that we expect. I think Housby looked tired. I would have loved to seen Housby go back into goal shoot and Ellie into that goal attack position. Also, just to provide something different for New Zealand. They're so fit. They're so fast. They were tracking us really well over that transverse line. We just needed someone to just stop and hold and be able to find that release as well.
Yeah, like an interesting point for me, by the end of the competition, like you say, Housby just looked knackered. Nat Metcalf, in particular, just looked exhausted. But if you look at the overall statistics for England, Sophie Drakeford-Lewis only played in 3 games, and she didn't even play a whole 60 of any of those games, I don't think, from memory. So did we actually utilise our bench early enough? Because I think if you look at sort of jumping ahead a little bit, so apologies, but if you look at the gold medal match where they brought on Cara Conan, she hadn't played an awful lot throughout the games either, but they knew that they could rely on her to bring her on. And I kind of don't feel like we had that same sense of trust in all of the players. And I just don't know if Jess knew what the answer was, who was going to be the answer, when to bring them on, what time to bring them on, what position to bring them on to. I just think it was a coaching masterclass by Knowles, which is what we've come to expect
hands
from
down.
her.
It is what we expect from her, and that's known across the netball world, and it's fascinating to get into her mind afterwards. I think we gave Souness too much space as well in the mid court, and maybe that's what Noeline was saying was that she brought a lot of new players through, because if you remember at the World Cup, we were calling that team the Fossils because they'd been hanging around for a while, but they closed out an incredible game plan. And I think that's what she's doing with these younger players as well. If you look at goal shoot for New Zealand, you know, I sort of thought, well, it's still looking a bit fawn-like, you know, developing and sort of legs a bit bendy sometimes, but and Weke so different in the two games, you know, and clearly that learning, and I think Knowles is really proud of that as well, and sort of going, right, we are bringing these players through, this is what I expect, this is the learning that I want to get, and they're taking those moments and they're moving with them. I think she's doing that across the board. It's a little bit more difficult for Jess because she's got those super experienced players that are maybe heading towards the end of their career, but are a really good unit. And then trying to feed in your Sophie Drakeford-Lewis, your Imogen Allison as well. And that's such a balancing time, isn't it? You know, it's not sort of, I think I did have a starting seven. Did you have a starting seven from England? I think I did. But I'm not sure. That wasn't super clear before the tournament, I didn't think.
Well, I think Jess said this herself. She said, I don't actually have a starting seven, and I certainly don't have a fixed centre. That last bit is, you know, word for word quote from her. But I think that was evident. You know, if you look at the number of changes that we made in the semi-final, and there was in the semi-final and the bronze medal game, the number of changes we made compared to
Noel stuck a seven,
Stacey stuck a seven.
Yeah.
I think that was evident to me that we didn't know who our starting seven was, or we didn't know the impact that the changes we were going to make would have. I don't know.
And I think as well, like, you can't take anything away from New Zealand for that performance.
Not at all.
And even just a case of how the bench was so animated, they were gunning for it. They just came out with so much more energy and fight in the opening few minutes. And then it was almost like England we saw a slow crumbling from them, and from some of those players that usually stand up in big moments. They failed to do that in when it really mattered in the crunch game. And I think the first time we played them, it didn't really matter. We knew that we needed to finish top two in the pool, and we knew that we needed to play whoever we were going to face next, you know, to get to the final. But it was almost like when that pressure was on, when it was the semi-final, you know, when everyone was there shouting and then getting a bit quieter throughout the game, that was the moment when, even though we had these experienced players, they didn't fully believe that they could go all the way.
Yeah, because we had our fossils, you know, as they're affectionately known. Whereas in the World Cup, the Kiwi fossils were able to stand up to the task and execute and get the job done. And I don't think that ours were. And I wonder whether there was almost too much expectation on them, and I wonder how heavily this sits with the players. And I think go on. I was just thinking, like, you know, with the impact of the games in 2018, obviously that was absolutely monumental, and we did medal in the World Cup. I think we were expected to get to the gold medal match, but we didn't, but we did still medal. I do think the expectations were possibly too much, and maybe the weight of knowing that if you didn't medal, there'll be repercussions for the sport in the country. Did that weigh on the players and the coaching team? I don't know.
Well, this really gets my goat. And I think the short-termism of saying or knowing in the back of your mind that if that performance isn't there, you might lose funding or you might lose media coverage. I mean, that doesn't help any team going into anything, doesn't it? And this is huge for me. We need investment in this sport, not just in terms of cash, but also in terms of going, we are with you for the long haul, and we know this is going to take time to develop, but we believe in it because it's an exciting sport that lots of women and girls and men as well have a connection to from a young age. We're going to put time into that. You go into a bronze medal match, you know, one wanting to be in the gold medal match, but knowing that you haven't hit that. You go into a bronze medal match with the expectation of a home games, which is wonderful because it spurs you along, but it also puts that pressure on you against a youngish New Zealand team who come out and are dancing on the bench because they're thinking, hey, we've got a second crack at this. And if we walk away with a medal, well done us, but we're still on our build, you know, and we've got young players that are trying to learn that. And I think Jess has been really honest and said, it's not just about Commonwealth Games for us. It's about World Cup. It's about that cycle that we're going through. But netball for me is as mental a game as it is a physical game. And when those things start to creep in, that is someone else to play against. And that's tough.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I fully agree with that. I think it would be fascinating to hear the fallout from it now and how they process that and stop this becoming another trauma memory of failing at the last hurdle.
And I think as well, there's a lot of talk on social media already about, is Jess the right woman for the job, and calling for her to be replaced. But I think that's quite short-sighted, and I think people are very quick to forget actually what she has achieved. We won the New Zealand series. We won the Jamaica series. Very
short memories when it comes like, no, get rid of them. That's it. Yeah.
This is a first major tournament. We've got depth in our program that we've never really had before, arguably. We did win those 2 test series. We won the New Zealand test series in New Zealand on their soil. So, I do think that people are very quick to judge. I do think, though, that being said, if we don't medal at the World Cup next year, then potentially some questions may need to be asked, or a review of the high performance program potentially. Where are the gaps? How can we plug them? But I think people calling for Jess to be replaced now is, I think, a bit unreasonable.
Absolutely.
First major tournament, guys.
Yeah.
Let's bear that in mind.
For sure. For sure. And you could see that, that they were having a great time, like especially, we topped our pool. I don't know if we've done that apart from 2018, presumably Commonwealth Games. I can't think of another time when we've done that. I'd have to double check. But, there's lots of these milestones that have been hit and we're building. And how good is it that we were going in with the expectation that we were going to be in that gold medal match? Obviously, that didn't happen, but we weren't just thinking, oh, let's try for bronze. We were actually gunning for gold, which is a real momentum shift, actually. And so moving on then to talk about that gold medal match, which obviously was really exciting. Fair play to the Aussies. I said this last night as well.
Killed it.
They smashed that game. Yep. They absolutely killed it. What do you make of this one, Lindsay?
What do I make of this one? What a game. I mean, I think, like I say, there was a lot of emotion around yesterday, and sort of processing the England performance and then thinking, right, just reframe and really enjoy this big gold medal match. And my goodness me, Jamaica, first time they've made a final at a Commonwealth Games, leaving with a silver medal. Saw a little interview with Shamira Sterling afterwards. He said, it isn't what we came for, meaning we came for gold, but we'll take it. We're really happy with that. She's absolutely gorgeous in that interview afterwards. And I think, let's talk about the Aussies first. They just absolutely nailed it, didn't they? And I think I did wonder again about that mental side, whether the pressure that they put on themselves, it can all be very serious with the Australian team, can't it? And I think there's sort of sucks the joy out of it sometimes. But I feel that they came with a job to do to that gold medal match. They got 2018 in their heads. They knew they were on our turf this time, and they just closed it out. I did lean across to the person that I was sitting next to, and sort of said, Steph Wood's looking a little bit tired for me. Why don't they put Gretel at goal attack and move Conan into goal shooter?
Exactly what we said.
Mix up the game. And 2 minutes later it happened. I was like, maybe I should actually just go and coach Australia. Maybe that's my destiny. And then I thought, God, no. People are doing very good jobs indeed. But I was pleased with that because you could feel it, couldn't you? You could feel that they just needed that momentum shift. And actually, the Jamaican defence, who I think are really superb, and I've loved watching Jodie Ann Ward as well, a little bit higher up the court, absolutely fantastic. But I think Jamaica never quite put the screw on that change.
And I think we did exactly the same. We're like, oh yeah, I'll definitely bring Conan on, but also we called the defensive change, didn't we, as well, about bringing Clow on. But what struck me about the changes that were made, they were only 2 goals behind when the change was made, but you could sense that almost the expected change in momentum where Jamaica were potentially going to run away with it, and Stacey went, nope, these are my changes, I'm rolling the dice and I'm doing it at this time with these players. And I think that's the stark difference to me between the changes that Stacey made and then the changes that Jess made. Stacey's were preemptive. She was sensing that this change was just about to happen rather than waiting until it had happened and then playing catch up. And I thought they were a masterstroke.
Yeah. No, it was absolutely a phenomenal move. And I think Jamaica then were kind of on the back foot. They didn't know how to, I mean, how can you play against Gretel Bueta? She shot 100%.
She's player of the tournament for me.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
I thought it was going to be Cardwell. And I think Cardwell is absolutely up there. And I think if the results had been different for England, she potentially would have got it. But Bueta is just a phenomenon.
She's the best goal attack in the world. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah. I'll give it that.
She's the best goal attack in the world. She's the best player in the world.
Yeah.
Let's just say it. She's the best player in the world.
Janelle Fowler, would you give it over?
I love Janelle Fowler. I absolutely love Janelle Fowler, and I feel that her game has changed so much over the last few years, because she just used to be a flagpole. it used to be stand, pop the ball in, long ball. If it didn't work, Jamaica lost their heads, and that was that. She's not like that anymore. She's moving. She's creating space. We saw her coming out the circle, didn't we? And it is wonderful to see. But Gretel she receives the ball on the edge of the circle, and suddenly, somehow, she's underneath the post.
Yeah.
And that stride in that she takes, but also the fly ball when she receives, her brain knows that it's going to land in a very different place to where you think she is. And somehow she moves around the defenders. She's such a clean player as well. And I think that it's training, but it's just genius. It's complete talent. Genius.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Is that even coachable, that level of talent? I think there's an element of this sort of really unique, special quality that we also see in Fumi Fidoju.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. There's that little something, that je ne sais quoi, that you just can't coach. You've either got it or you haven't. And I think Bueta does have it. But you're absolutely right in terms of her shooting. That split that she has is absolutely. Oh, I'm going to stop saying absolutely. I've been told off for saying that too many times. Thanks, Louise. No, I love you, Louise. But no, every time she took the ball, every single one of her shots, if you look at the chart of where the shots were taken from, is right under the post. But she did not receive that ball right under the post. Those splits are devastating.
Yeah.
Actually, that change was absolutely vital, because I think Shamira Sterling is one of the only players in the world that can get a handle on that. There's not many that get themselves in the right position or suddenly have something extra to add to that mix. And Australia could see that. They could see that actually, although Gretel was still playing superbly, Shamira Sterling did have a bit of a handle on it, and then just moving her out, so she's then against the goal defence, and suddenly Shamira has to split her brain and sort of think, right, where am I best placed in this circle now? Left Conan free, didn't it? So when Gretel wasn't doing her thing, suddenly Conan was moving on that line.
Yeah, and Conan's good enough that she will punish you as well.
She's punishing on the baseline.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. I think one of the key talking points for me from this game was around the penalties. Australia had a whopping 89 penalties compared to 53 for Jamaica.
Jeepers.
And actually 40 of Australia's total penalties were to Bruce and Clow. And I was genuinely quite surprised that there weren't some cautions given out for persistent contact, especially when you look at the numbers for that. But yeah,
how clean were Jamaica though?
Right,
that's a real area of their game that they've really tidied up. Like the obstruction. Shamira Sterling was on very, very few penalties, even though she was winning plenty of ball. And I think that's something that we know Rob Wright has been working with them as a defensive coach. That's something that he's probably introduced with them to stay in play, and you've got more of a chance of coming out and winning clean ball. And it's those kind of those changes that have made Jamaica come on in leaps and bounds. Reflect on where they were at the 2015 World Cup, the 2019 World Cup, with almost the same squad as they had now. They just needed that change of leadership. I think Connie Francis has had an outstanding tournament coaching them. She was really great to chat to you afterwards. She's so passionate about the game. You can tell how much she loves it, how much she wants to give to these players, how much she has invested her heart, body and soul, I guess, into this. And I think you saw that on the players when they came out. They were playing a bit more for each other. They were playing, for the pride of Jamaica rather than as individual stars, which I think we've seen previously from them as well.
But also, slight sidebar on Connie. I can't remember what game it was now, but she was really in demand for the post-match interviews afterwards. And I think we were like sort of right at the end of the queue waiting for her. And we sort of said, do you mind sort of staying for a couple of minutes? And she was like, no, absolutely. This is what it's all about. It's all about, getting netball out there. And she really recognised how important her contributions were as well to the growth of the game and being able to have this access like you were talking about earlier. So she's just such a generous spirit.
Yeah, no, I really like chatting with her. And I mean, obviously we've heard a lot of talk about Jamaica in terms of the resources. Rob Wright actually revealed that he isn't being paid as an assistant coach. He is there for free voluntarily, which absolutely blows my mind. And it just it's baffling that they're coming second in the world and some of their coaches aren't even being paid.
Yeah, I mean,
like 6 of their players are going back to their normal jobs when they go back, and we do that in the Super League as well. Obviously, we're running a league alongside people's professional career jobs as well. But I think it's different out there. You know, I think that you've got your SSN players. I think there were 6 in the lineup for Jamaica that will go back and play in Australia and be paid to do that. But the rest are going back to their jobs as police people, as teachers, as whatever they do in Jamaica. I find that, I find, one, it's astonishing. 2, it's a tiny bit heartbreaking, because you sort of think, we think we're at this level and actually it's not quite where we think it is. But I find it worrying as well. I think, my goodness me, if they were professional over there, can you imagine what that game would look like? And when I look at us and at New Zealand, it is a wonderful thing. But yeah, what they're coping with and the way that they got here. He said as well, didn't he, that they've got 1 physio for the team. Yeah. And I was like, 1 physio for the team. It's for the whole Jamaica team. It's not for the netball team. It's for the whole of Team Jamaica that has come to the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, just to provide a little bit more context for listeners, there's a great thread from the lovely Sasha Shipway on Twitter. I'm just going to read it out now. So this was from Rob Wright in the post-match interview. He says, and I quote, "We are really under-resourced. Most other teams probably have more support staff than we have players. We have no analyst, no strength and conditioning, no dietitian here, and there's 1 massage therapist for the entire Jamaican team. They're all obstacles, but we don't use them as excuses. We use that to keep trying to build. On that final, there's 6 players who don't play any league. They play in club netball at home, and 3 are in our starting 7. It just shows what's possible. We're only just starting, and we're going to come back even better." Like, I've got goosebumps just reading that. And like you say, if you could think of what could be if they had the resources and the funding, but also the same, I mean, we banged on about this loads with Malawi, not a single professional grade core. And if you look at the performances of Uganda and where they finished, if all of these teams, if there was that equality in the provision for all teams across the globe, just imagine what netball would look like.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. And the players that you're talking about there, we've focused, haven't we, all the way through Commonwealth Games on the shooting circle and the defensive circle of Jamaica. And we've said, if they've got a problem, it's in the mid-court. And some of those players are in the mid-court. And actually, I thought they stood up. I thought they stood up against the world number ones. It did cause them problems. And it comes down to fine margins, doesn't it? And I was watching the game and sort of thinking, yeah, we were right. We've got the big names at either end, but the mid-court need to come through. But then you hear the history and you hear what's going on behind that, and you sort of think it is going to come through, and those players actually did stand up and played the best in the world.
Yeah.
Credit.
I really just hope that I really hope that this is a catalyst for Jamaica to really take off. I mean, we heard as well they've got a new sponsorship deal with a rum company, which sounds amazing.
Yeah,
which is a 3-year deal, and it's a significant amount of money. I think I saw
14 million Jamaican dollars.
And that is what they need, is that investment for them to back the girls and take them to that next level. Because like you say, Lindsay, it's fine margins. And imagine if the resources were so level. And I really am so excited to see what Jamaica can put out at the World Cup.
Yes.
I think now they've realized that they can do it and they can get to that final. I mean, I think England hearts might potentially be broken, but if they can get to that final again and show that they can compete with the best in the world, I mean, what a position for them to be in.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate what that'll do for English netball as well. Yeah. Because we will build from that and we will start to play with a different style. I think Ellie is a really good shout that you've mentioned her, because she is one of the players of the tournament for me. And wow, have we seen her come through the Thunder pathway. She's played every position on the court apart from centre. And there she is, goal shooter, goal attack, that split. I would love a stat. I don't know if you girls can get it for me, but I would love a stat on Gretel's split and Ellie's split. I would love to know
the centimeters.
who in centimeters, who's got what there, because she can do the same thing. I think playing out in Australia is going to change her game even further. Malks is going to change out in New Zealand as well. And as we bring those different styles in, you've got to face up to them. I'm sure some will come across into our league as well, you know, so that is going to raise our game. Must shout out there to Australia. They did win, you know, we've given Jamaica a huge amount of that. I do want to shout out to Ash Brazel and
I can't believe I haven't even talked about the midcourt, and they were playing with a player down. Paige Hadley was injured very early on. Those 3 midcourters played the entirety of those games. I mean, the fitness levels to do that and back up day after day, that is unreal.
Yeah, and I think historically there's been questions around Ash Brazel's selection within squads, but even if you took her for that semi-final game alone, the way that she was able to shut down Nat Metcalf, that one game warrants her inclusion in the entire squad for me. She was sensational. Absolutely, she was. And you've hit the nail on the head there. She quietened down our captain. And that's a huge, huge achievement. You've got Kate Maloney as well. I thought Liz Watson began to look a little bit tired towards the end, but, you know, maybe they kept that there because, again, you've got that leader on court. But I felt that the Australian mid-court didn't get loads of press, but they just ground it out. They really ground it out, you know, and they weren't doing the flashy defensive, a lot of contact. I'm not a big fan of that. You know, I don't like slowing the game down. Some of it is intentional. And I just think I don't have any time for that. You know, let's play the advantage and let's get on with it. And then, you know, all the sort of superstar in the shooters, but the mid-court for Australia cannot. And we wondered about that, didn't we? We wondered after all the changes that they've had. Losing in 2018, they cried when they got silver in 2019. Like, chill out, girls. You know, you've got to feel that. It's really good, but that's what it means to Australian netball players. And I think that they have come back. When they played the quad series, we didn't know, did we? We sort of thought, well, what's going to happen here with this Australian team? And they've come out and they've proved that they've got the strength and depth. Yeah, I think it's just shown like how significant netball is to like within the culture of Australia as well. Like the fact that you come away from a World Cup with a silver and you're actually crying on the podium, like you say, that just shows how important it is and how ingrained I think netball is within Australia there. And that's kind of what I wish we were like. I think we're getting there. I think we've got to keep persisting. And, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah, and it's just slow progress though. I'm impatient. I know, me too. And I as well. But this is what it's all about. The conversations afterwards. It's been amazing, you know, hearing from fans throughout the games. You know, we get so many people messaging us saying, oh, we thought this, you know, just seeing those conversations and everything happening online. It's coming. We're getting there. And, you know, and this is a big part of it. Yeah. There's been the most conversations I've ever seen online about it, which is wonderful. And the window in terms of the Super League as well, the chat around that is the most I've ever seen. And we've got something to look forward to as well, because World Netball, you know, we've announced that there's going to be the Uganda series and then we're going back to Australia. And I think, oh, good, thank goodness. It's not just Commonwealth Games fall off a cliff again. You know, it's something, we're stepping on to the next thing. Yeah, so do buy your ticket. Tickets are on sale for the England-Uganda Test Series. It's going to be great. They've got, I think, 1 or 2 test matches in Nottingham and then 1 or 2 in London. I can't remember which way around it is. So, do buy your tickets. Do show up. Do keep talking about it, because the more conversations we have, the more interaction we get, the bigger the profile of the sport. And that just, you know, it's a rolling stone, then it will just lead to bigger and better things. Snowball. Yeah, snowball effect. That's what I'm looking for. Rolling stone. What are we on about? That's a band. And seriously, the group stage, just to finish the group stage against New Zealand that we had, I think that is some of the best netball that I've seen, and the crowd discovered their feet, didn't they? And as you said, the stadium was absolutely shaking. And that's what this sport offers. It is not a 0-0 draw, is it? It's dynamism, it's ups and downs, and it's so exciting to watch. And that's what I'll take from the Commonwealth Games, actually, is that our sport has that, and that people are switching onto it.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? I think that is an absolutely fantastic note to end on, Lindsey. Just that inspiration, that looking forward to the future. Yes, we reflect and we take learnings, and maybe the performance from England wasn't what we were hoping for, but everything else that's happened on court, you know, Ebony coming on for her retirement in those last few minutes, that was incredible, you know.
Jiva taking herself off, you know.
And we're now we're looking ahead to that, you know, Vitality Netball Super League signing window, which is coming up. I mean, all the talk that's been going on already about that, it's just, there's so much to look forward to, and we're on this journey together.
Yeah. The next big step is to professionalize the Super League, but we can only do that by helping to grow the sport. So do show up, do tune into the Super League starting in February next year, do get involved in the conversations. And onwards and upwards.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Lindsey, for your time today. It's been really lovely chatting.
My pleasure. And a huge thank you to both of you as well for keeping everybody informed throughout the 10 days. I think you've earned, you know, an ice bath and a leg massage and a little rest.
Maybe a bottle or two of gin.
For sure. Thanks, Lindsey. Take care.
Pleasure. Lovely to speak to you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Qtr Time podcast. To say it's been a pleasure to cover the games will be the understatement of the year. It's been a once in a lifetime opportunity. We are so grateful for the opportunity and for you guys and your engagement across the 10 days. Don't forget, you can catch up on all of our episodes from the games over the last 10 days in all the usual places.
Yeah, it's been truly amazing. Yeah. I can't remember a time when I felt just so happy and so grateful to be here and to be able to have so many amazing conversations. It's really brilliant. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media at Qtr Time Pod for all the latest netball updates. Do get involved in the conversation online. So many of you already have got in touch to let us know that you were watching the games, what you thought, and we really, really love hearing from you guys. So don't hesitate, reach out, send us a DM. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, slide into those DM, man. we always love chatting netty to literally anyone who will listen. But also, just before we finish as well, a massive, massive thank you, not only to you guys as fans for your engagement over the games, but also to the players, to the coaches, to the volunteers, to the event staff, to the security, to the umpires. Everyone has put in an absolute shift over these games, and you've made it truly, truly very special. So a big, big thank you for everything that you've given the games. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break now, but we'll be back on socials in a couple of weeks in the lead up to the England Men's and Mixed Netball Association Nationals. Whoop, whoop. Going to be so good. They are on the August bank holiday weekend. Do check out the EMNA website for more details on how you can watch Nationals. We're thrilled to share that we'll be leading the commentary team again this year. Maybe even some arena hosting. Who knows? It's going to be great. And after Nationals, we'll be taking another short break before the Vitality Netball Super League signing window closes. And then we'll be back with a bang to bring you a special episode on how the teams are shaping up. And I will say this now. Super League next year is going to be insane.
Yeah, nobody's ready.
Different league. Yeah. Totally different league.
And finally, we would really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review the podcast, as it helps other people to find us. If you enjoy listening to the pod, please do let us know. Spread the word with your netball pals, your auntie, your uncles,
dog
everyone,
walker,
your hairdresser. Let them know so even more people can get involved. And just really thank you again for all your support throughout the games. It's been amazing. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.